pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have one announcement this morning as results of closed session held at the meeting of April 8, 2008. It was closed session conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. Property APMs as follows: 44-011-039. Agency negotiator Brent Harrington or alternate to be determined. Negotiating party Ken and Helene Weinbrenner, trustees et al. Under negotiation, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase price financing options, County Council Administration meeting was canceled. We now turn to the consent agenda. These are items expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. However, any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of any item from the consent calendar for later discussion. Is there anybody from the board wishing to remove a consent item?
Item 6.
Item 6 is removed. Any other on the part of the board? Staff? Members of the public? Yes, Maury?
Item 5.
Item 5 will be removed. Do I hear a motion? Any other items to be removed? Do I have a motion on items 1 through 4?
Move for approval.
Second.
So motion and second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We will now hear Maury on the proclaiming this day as National Library Worker Day.
I pulled item 5 because with me today are the staff from the Central Library: Elizabeth Martin, Lena Marino-Palm, Lynn Cuneo, Lynn Castor, and Radine Willis. And I hope that one of you would read the proclamation for us.
I would be proud to do the honor. This is a resolution proclaiming Tuesday, April 15th as National Library Workers' Day. Whereas libraries provide citizens with the knowledge and information they need to live, learn, and work in the 21st century. And whereas librarians and library support staff bring the nation a world of knowledge in person and online, as well as personal service and expert assistance in finding what is needed when it is needed. And whereas the Calaveras County Library System provided over 10,712 hours of library service to the Calaveras community this past year. And whereas it's important to recognize the unique contributions of all library workers and their value to individuals and society. And whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week and National Library Workers' Day, now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors proclaims Tuesday, April 15th, 2008 as National Library Workers' Day and encourages all residents to visit our libraries and thank the library staff for their contributions to the Calaveras community.
Who's minding the library?
Let's also remember that libraries are a place where all people gain access to information, and it's always been a fundamental tenet of the democracy that this country has always stood for. So that's not in here, but I hope people remember the role it's played over the centuries of existence in this country. Do I hear a motion on this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? It's 5-0, and thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for yesterday. That was I ate a lot of candy.
So it's a normal day for you?
Normal day.
Okay, now we turn to item number 6. Marita?
Because of the always controversy over this, and because it has to do with the general plan, I felt like it should not be on the consent agenda, and I did have some clarifications that were not clear to me. Bob, did you give Stephanie my...
Good morning, Stephanie Moreno, Director of Community Development. These changes are primarily for two reasons. One is to correct language that was adopted originally that was incorrect. The second was to add additional tasks that were directed by the board relative to the release of the preliminary draft of the baseline study, and to add additional community meetings to the general plan update. It incurred some additional costs, which we are hoping to absorb into the final contract. So we are not at this time incurring any additional costs for this fiscal year. We're hoping to roll some of these costs to next fiscal year and also consolidate other items within the contract, so our net cost will be zero, is our hope. So these are just technical changes to the general plan that will not make any difference to our bottom line this year, or nor the way that we're operating the general plan.
Okay, so I wasn't clear, because we were talking about amendments for phases 2B through 9, and I really wasn't clear what those phases, what that meant.
We had broken the original general plan into two components. One was phases 1 and 2, the orientation, the baseline study, and then items 3 through 9 started with the first round of, or the second round of public meetings, issues and opportunities, all the way up to the final EIR. The 2B is a component relative to the economic development work necessary for the fiscal component. There wasn't sufficient funding in the first phases because we had done that last fiscal year, so we asked to roll it to this contract for this year in order to balance our monies out. It's merely a matter of moving the money in order to accommodate the budget years for the county. And that was 2B of the last contract.
I was also wondering if we were adding the bike and pedestrian plans.
The bike and pedestrian plans are naturally going to be added as part of the general plan update. Any information relative to the county is incorporated in the general plan.
Is that part of the circulation element? Is that considered part of that?
It's coming in from COG, actually, I believe, so it would most likely be part of the circulation element. It may or may not have shown up in the baseline report. That doesn't mean it won't be incorporated in the final general plan.
But we haven't adopted those plans.
No, those are, as we discussed at COG, those have to formally come into the county. We bring them to the board for adoption. We can either do it ahead of time, or we can do it as part of the general plan update. I think we agreed at COG that we were going to bring them in ahead of time.
That's a separate issue, and
Yes.
I can deal with that later. So the community, the livable community plans that Arnold's doing and San Andreas is going to start, are those going to be added? Because we talked about how the community plans were going to work, and it didn't say that in here.
As part of Intier's, well, those two transportation grants came about after we had already done the work plan for the general plan. They will be incorporated in the general plan most likely as implementation measures because they are project-driven.
Okay.
And so we would be hoping to wrap those in as implementation measures for those particular areas of the county. Mintier has committed funding towards making community plans consistent with the general plan up to a certain amount. If we exceed the scope of what that requires, there may be additional modifications needed at a later date.
And the one was just minor. I thought that Avery Hathaway's plans, community plan was adopted in 98 versus 99. That's not a drop-dead issue on that. I just felt maybe it needed to be
I think we
clarified.
verified all those dates when we did the original plan, but we can verify them again, and when we do another contract amendment, we can fix that.
And the other question I had was on page 18 regarding the housing element. Since the housing element needs to be updated in June of '09, are we going to now be updating the housing element then as part of this?
We are not adopting.
Versus a separate.
We are not updating that housing element as part of this contract. We are making it internally consistent with the other elements as part of this general plan update. So if there's additional work needed on the housing element, which I think we all agree there is, that would have to be under separate contract.
Okay. Well, when expires in June of '09.
Well, it doesn't actually expire, it's just that
It
we...
reaches its
right.
5-year turnaround cycle. So when does the state expect us, since that's the only mandatory one every 5 years, when does the state expect us then to have that?
They would expect us to have it by the 5-year date. Right.
Okay.
And so what we are planning on doing, as we had indicated earlier, the optional elements of the general plan and the housing element and other things that the board would like us to work on will commence when we finish the initial general plan update, draft plan, begin work on the EIR. That gives us some time to start work on those other issues.
Okay. I also like the word of the use component versus element. I mean, we're already up to 22 elements or whatever, so.
I don't think we have quite that many, but there is a wish list out there of that many.
An ag element, an economic element, and a water element. I don't think it's having an element's important, it's having those components that are important.
The message that we've been trying to give to everybody is that it doesn't matter if we have an element or not as to how important we treat an issue.
That's right.
We create our policies, procedures, goals, implementation measures based upon our values and our mission and our vision for the general plan. Economic development is an important part of that. Agriculture is an important part of that. Housing is an important part of that. It's up to us to make sure that we put very tight implementation measures into our general plan in order to accomplish those goals.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on item 6.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it, but I have a couple questions also here before we take action. On page 3 of 3 there at the beginning, Stephanie, it says the consultant retains the right to use non-confidential material developed under this agreement for marketing purposes. What does that exactly mean?
That means, for example, if they draft a community vision statement in a glossy document for people to look at, that they can use it to go out to bid to other counties. Said this is what we did with Calaveras County.
Okay, this isn't for marketing, like telephone marketing or something?
Oh, no. It's just for their purposes when they go out to bid.
Okay, just so they can use it as a model?
They can use it as a model. They can launch it on their website for people to see what kind of work they do.
Okay, fine. And then on page 17 back in here, you say under item 4, which is assumptions, you talk about the study will update, streamline, and incorporate the following existing community special plans, and you have a huge list of them there. I thought we had basically agreed that we would do the community plans after the general plan, with the exception of, I think, West Point and Valley Springs and perhaps Copper.
There's a distinction between actually redoing the community plans and streamlining and making them consistent with the general plan. If we don't look at them and make sure that they're okay, it will cause our general plan update or general plan to be rejected.
The general plan.
It's just making sure that everything lines up.
Community plans.
Yes, it's not a full-fledged redo. It's just to make sure everything in there is appropriate for us to get approved by the state for our general plan.
Okay. Thank you.
With the exception of the ones that we otherwise...
Call to the question, Mr. Chair, then.
Okay, question's been called. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 6 is approved. We now turn our attention to public comments, and we're asking people to hold that to 5 minutes per person and 15 minutes per topic.
Thank you. I'm Rita Downs, Director of Behavioral Health, and I just wanted to do a personal thank you to library workers today, and I wanted to share a little story from my life related to library workers. About 10 years ago, we were deposited, my 15-year-old niece, on our doorstep, who had lived with her schizophrenic mother her whole entire life, literally. She had never been to school. She didn't know how to cross the street. She didn't know how to ride a bike. She had never had a friend. She did have a dog for a little while, and that was about it. She was literally a feral child. Excuse my allergies. The only thing that the strength that she came with was that she was an avid reader. She read books that the rest of us have never even heard of and could discuss them. And she was an avid writer. And she gained that from spending time in libraries, because she could get her mentally ill mother to go to the library. And the librarians and the library workers put up with the mother all day long, every day, so Maria could read and enjoy an intellectual life, which she had strongly developed. Thanks to that, she started high school, went through high school in 3 years, graduated with honors, graduated from Cal State San Bernardino, just got her master's degree from Columbia in cultural anthropology, and is in a PhD program there for cultural anthropology. And I credit the librarians, the library workers. Thank you very much.
Well, what a timely remark. Thank you. Other items from the public?
Good morning. My name is Scott Glenn. I'm a business owner in Murphy's, a member of the board of directors of Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, and a member of the Agriculture Coalition. The Agriculture Coalition has prepared a statement that I'd like to read to you, and I have copies as well for the board. Honorable Board of Supervisors, the Agricultural Coalition, consisting of the Calaveras County Cattlemen's Association, Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, Calaveras Grown, and the Calaveras Farm Bureau, strongly recommends that an agriculture element be added to the general plan. The Agriculture Coalition is committed to actively participate in the development of the agriculture element, similar to its participation in the agriculture zoning ordinance adopted approximately 2 years ago. Agriculture holds the key to the future of our county. The preservation of the county's rural character is of primary importance to most county residents. The county maintains this rural character and creates a sustainable fundamental economic base when agriculture and working landscapes are nourished and protected. Ag operations and working landscapes are a major contributor to the economic engine of the county. This economic fact goes well beyond the sale of food and fiber, but is responsible in large part for the growth of tourism and the resulting restaurants, lodging, and stores. Often overlooked in this equation is the role agriculture plays in providing the county with open space, wildlife habitat, watershed protection, oak woodlands, and recreational opportunities. The inclusion of agriculture as its own element is recognition of the essential contributions agriculture makes to the county's rural character and economy. The Ag Coalition has commenced the process of drafting an agriculture element, which we believe can be completed in a relatively short period of time. We stand ready to work with you to place this agriculture element within the county's new general plan and acknowledge the key role that ag will play in the future of our county. This letter is signed by Tim Fullendorf, President of the Calaveras County Cattlemen's Association, Taliba Al-Rafiq, President of Calaveras Grown, myself, Scott Klan, Director of Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, and Steve Kafka, President of Calaveras County Farm Bureau. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I also have copies of the letter for each of you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the board?
No, it just seemed really appropriate. It's what fits right in with what Stephanie talked about just before regarding the general plan.
Indeed, yeah, and we do intend to submit a standalone ag element for your review and consideration.
Excellent. It's actually refreshing when people ask us for things and then stand up and are ready to do something about it. We very much applaud that.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Other items from the public? Apparently not. I would like to mention something under this agenda topic, however. You may notice that behind me is a quilt, which actually features the handprints of cancer survivors. This board actually has 2 cancer survivors on it, and many of us have lost friends and loved ones as well. Most of you are aware of the Relay for Life that takes place. It's an event that raises money and particularly calls attention to the issue of cancer in our communities. And my hope is that this quilt will remind both people who are watching this on television and people in this audience that we still have a long ways to go before we can end this scourge in our health. My thoughts are that a quilt like this can not just remind us of sad things, but also the fact that there are many who have been able to survive the challenges that cancer brings to themselves and their families So I would hope all would join me in participating in Relay for Life and use this moment to remember both lost loved ones and support of people who have managed to get through this in their lives. So wanted to mention this before moving on. The dates for the Relay for Life are April 26th and 27th, and this happens at Calaveras High School, I believe. Excuse me, Bret Hart. It will be happening at Bret Hart. Okay, I believe this brings us to a 2-minute pause. We have a 9:25 air pollution control. Oh, I'm sorry. Number 8. We have a resolution proclaiming April 21 to 25 as Calaveras Works and Human Services Agency Support Staff Appreciation Week in Calaveras County.
Good morning. I'm Mary Sawicki, Director of Calaveras Works and Human Services. We are asking the board to approve April 21st through 25th as Professional Support Staff Appreciation Week. These are the individuals who greet folks, who take care of all the paperwork, make sure the checks get out, you name it. They do it, and actually, they make us look good every day of the week. We have a special occasion planned at our all-staff meeting. If you do indeed approve the resolution, Supervisor Claudine, and of course any of you can come, and we plan on honoring our staff in front of the entire agency at that time. So we therefore are requesting that you approve the resolution.
Okay, when is that all-staff meeting?
The Thursday next week at 8:15 a.m. Same place, Sequoia Run.
That would be the 24th?
Yes.
Wait until he's done with the questions.
Any questions or comments?
I'd like to move this resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mary.
I like the theme, Mary.
Isn't it great?
Yes, very good.
Well, this brings us exactly to 9:25 and air pollution control. We will now reconstitute ourselves as the Air Pollution Control District.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The resolution before you is authorizing the Air Pollution Control Officer to participate in the Conway program. This is the 4th year the district will be receiving $200,000, out of which $20,000 will be used to administer the program and $180,000 will be given away to the qualifying, I underline, qualifying applicants to be used for installing new engines, modifying old engines to reduce emissions from the heavy-duty diesel engines. And the district has already 2 potential applicants which may be qualified to renew their engines. And through this board's hearing process, I'm requesting and encouraging every other applicant who would like to either renew their, remodify their, or buy new engines using this program. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I had just one on the fiscal impacts. It'll be adjusted in fiscal year 0708 with total disbursement of $180,000 by 2010. I wasn't clear on that. If we're going to be getting money every year, what does that mean?
Money will be received, $200,000 will be received before June 30th, 2008. If we do not, we have been lucky enough to give away this money every year. If we are not able to give away this year or 2009, then it's end of 2010, we can keep that money if we have the qualifying applicant.
Okay, thank you.
So we have 3 years. In the meantime, next year we'll receive another $200,000, and the following year we'll receive another $200,000.
Okay, other questions from the board? Do I hear a motion?
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That was the Air Pollution Control Board, not the Board of Supervisors resolution, and will be recorded as such. We will now reconstitute ourselves as the Board of Supervisors. Changing hats once again. Yes. Excuse me, yes, I apologize. Are there any public, before we conclude the Air Pollution Control District meeting, are there any public comments on air pollution control? Apparently not. And is there a motion to approve the minutes from the last Air Pollution Control District meeting? Motion, second, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0, and that will be the conclusion of the Air Pollution Control District, and we will now reconstitute ourselves as the Board of Supervisors. We have a 2-minute break before moving to public hearings from the Community Development Agency. We'll take that break now. Now move to item number 9, public hearing of Community Development Agency, items 9A and B. Bob?
Mr. Chairman, before you open these hearings, let me give you a little briefing on where we do. I have to do this quarterly for you. As you are well aware, we amend the general plan, but 4 times a year. We can have multiple amendments on this single item. We would ask you to open the public hearing on both of these agenda items, take the input on those 2 discussions only relative to the environmental review and general plan, close the hearing however you decide whether one or both of those should move forward, adopt the resolution that does the general plan deed, if you would. Once that is complete, then we can go into the individual hearings relative to the actual approvals for those projects if you're still under consideration. Obviously, should you decide one or both of those should not have a general plan change, that would inherently stop the projects because they are both contingent on that change. So at this point, I would go ahead and if you'd like to open the hearing, or I can just do a brief overview, whichever you prefer first.
I would prefer you do a brief overview, and then we'll move to public hearing.
Okay, you have the staff's recommendations and the Planning Commission's recommendations. You have 2 projects. Let me make sure I say them in the right order. The first is the general plan amendment and associated zoning tentative map for Jack House, which is the Murphy's Oaks project, which is the map that is behind County Council. The purpose is to amend the general plan to reflect the 10,000 square foot minimum residential zone for the commercial, and I think in one document there may be a typo on that it had a residential designation. It's actually commercial. So that's the nature of this general plan change. The proposal is for the minimum lots as shown. There's a tentative map associated with it. This is substantially an infill project. All of the circulation and prior roads, there's a bridge crossing. All of these were requirements of prior subdivisions, which the applicant is in the process of completing. So what you have now is a relatively small change in the Murphy's area to move from commercial designations to residential designations. The map then accomplishes that. The second application is a general plan amendment, zoning amendment, and tentative parcel map for John and Maria Stoughton. That is underneath the clock. This proposal, as recommended from the Planning Commission, is slightly different than the original petition. The petition currently has a request for a 5-acre density over the entire parcel. There is currently a concurrent parcel map that would create 4 parcels, approximately 2 5s, a 10, and a 20. The Commission is recommending that the general plan amendment be allowed, but that the 2 larger parcels, when you actually come to their rezoning, that you place an X on those, which would prohibit further division other than those 4 parcels until such time as the final general plan for this area is adopted. This would allow 2 things. It would allow the general density that is consistent with the neighborhoods. It's within about 1,000 feet of the West Point community. yet at the same time not create what the commission felt was an overcapacity in that area. So it's basically saying we will allow in part some of this proposal, but ask that the balance of it be limited. That choice, again, is up to the planning, or excuse me, up to the board. That is a recommendation from the planning commission.
Does the staff endorse the planning commission's recommendation?
The planning commission has spoken, and that's what we endorse. We are the agents of the planning commission at this point, so they have made their recommendation, and that is our recommendation.
Bob, would you reiterate the difference in the original petition now is for a 5, 2 5s, a 10, and a 20, did you say?
I believe that's correct, approximately.
And the X
plus or minus
designates that the 10 and the 20 will have to remain that way.
Would remain that way until the county's general plan update is completed. If it allows more than those parcel sizes, then obviously the X could come off, and we would remove that as part of our consistency zoning.
Thank you.
And make it real clear, because years down the road, when we try and follow out why they put X's.
That was exactly why we are having, A, this discussion with you, and B, we are being explicit in the staff report that is exactly why that is being placed on there, and that is the full intention of both the planning commission and if you adopt it, the board, so that it is clear in the record why it was put on and why it can come off in the future.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? In that case, we'll open the public hearing on, do you wish to do these concurrently or in sequence?
Well, we have but a single resolution, so we need to have both of them opened and take all of the input on the general plan changes, close the hearings on those, and act just on the environmental review and the general plan amendment only.
All right.
Okay.
So we will open public hearing for items 9A and 9B at this time. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board on either case?
I'm George McCullum. I'm the neighbor next 429 Ball Mountain Road. I'm next to the property here that you want to cut to 5 acres. I'm in the southeast corner there. Everything on that mountain they're going to do, if you let them do this, is going to run through my property, water, settlement, all kinds of stuff. And I've asked for another environment study. I've never been contacted. They've done it. There's a mine on that property, hasn't been checked yet. And the last planning commission hearing we had, the fire department says they cannot come in there on the John Earth Road. They won't let them. It's a private road, and they have to have access into that property for fire. I don't even know why it got this far without this being done. Because everything that happens, if you go ahead and do it, that's fine. But the first mud, I've already got from my neighbor's mud down in my pond. But I'm not going to be the good old boy no more. Anything happens up there, if they divide it, build houses, you're going to have stuff on my property, and I'm not going to have it. And I want it established now what's going to happen if they do it. It's already divided to 10. We'd like to keep it rural, you know. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on item 9A or 9B?
Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of questions for the gentleman.
Okay. Could you come back, Mr. McCullum? Could you please come back? One of the supervisors has a question or two for you. Mr. Thomas?
Good morning, Mr. McCullum. I want to make sure I understand where your property is.
No, over here, southeast corner. Southwest corner, right there. No, that whole piece right there. 6.9 acres.
Right here.
No, I own both across the road and that. Yeah.
All this.
Everything that comes off of that mountain is going to affect me. I've got the hub and the wheel. And as soon as it starts, I'm going to stop it.
Okay, it looks like the topographical features run this way.
Yeah, the road crooks right through there. But everything, high water, runoff from their property, if they go to building, I'm gonna have all kinds of stuff down on my property.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but the topographical features on this map would, in a way, be in conflict with that, because at the east side of your property line, it says that this elevation is 2690, then it goes back up to 27, so this is back up to 26.
Well, I got 6.9 acres there, and everything on that property that happens is gonna come, water, he has there's 3 runoffs there, and the one that's barely on the edge of the property to the right, that always has mud running over the road. Now, my neighbor's pond is half full of mud, mine's half full of mud. Now, you can imagine what's gonna happen when they start building.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak during this public hearing? All right, we'll end the public hearing and bring it back to staff.
Mr. Chairman, just one response. These issues were raised at the Planning Commission level. Staff, in considering this matter, pointed out, and I can understand it may not be necessarily acceptable to the gentleman, but this is somewhat the status of the law. The tentative map itself regulates the construction of the roadways that were necessary to service this project. There will be improvement plans, there's drainage control and erosion control that is associated with the construction of those physical improvements. In addition, the county's grading ordinance also regulates the construction and erosion control at individual home site developments as they occur. So there is nothing inherent about this proposal that in and of itself will create new or additional hazards that are not already regulated. Okay, so the erosion potentials that are there would be predominantly in construction with a single-family residence. There is a grading ordinance that addresses that, and the road construction itself, hopefully, since it will have to look at all of the drainage, would, if anything, perhaps ameliorate some of the existing drainage problems. And those were our responses at the time. We believe they're still valid at this time.
I also thought, and maybe I've misread this, but the concern about fire access on John Eef Road, I thought had been mitigated in previous discussions, and I wanted to check in on that.
Yes, the county is requiring all access be through the private road through the center of the property. That is the only access. In fact, the county has required a waiver of access from John, help me, Eef Road.
Yes.
So that is not considered an access point to this property at all.
Okay, so the fire chief's concern, as outlined in his letter, was addressed in that.
Yes, we addressed it through requiring the access meet county requirements, including fire requirements, on the property.
Okay, and the question of water and sediment, you say should be addressed during the building process, and our grading ordinance should handle the concerns or address the concerns of the speaker in the public hearing.
Yes, I do.
Stephen?
Yes, Marita.
Since we're on that one, on, yes, on staff report, on the building department fire, number F, the roadway grade shall not exceed a 16% grade. I think it should be modified to unless mitigated to the same practical effect as 16%. Because that's really what we've been doing, or that's what we have agreed to do.
Yes, the language relative to the road itself should be, I believe that comment is from building, and it really applies to the
Roadway, not the driveway.
driveways, not the roadway.
Okay, this is the
roadway has-
roadway grades.
Okay, the
So-
roadway should be meeting county ordinance relative to roads, which I believe is the maximum.
16%. And for roadways, it's 16%. What about for driveways, Bob? I didn't see that.
I believe the county roads, and forgive me, Public Works can correct me if I'm misstating this, the roads is a maximum of 12%. Driveways can be up to a
Okay.
maximum of 16% without mitigation, and then over that with additional mitigation. So
Okay, wait a minute.
That's all.
What's the elevation here? Is it below 3,000 feet? Yes, it is. So the maximum grade is 16% for below 3,000 feet for driveways. But 16% is the key component, because you're right, Bob, thank you. It does say roadway grades. I'm not questioning the roadway grade. There was nothing in here on driveways. I just want to make sure on driveways it sticks with what our protocol now is.
The driveways would be based on the current protocol. There's no
Okay.
doubt about that, and no question.
Okay, but this says roadways, that's fine.
If I might comment on that, Stephanie Moreno, Director of Community Development. You raise an excellent point, and in light of the recent controversy, I think that it would be prudent for us to add a note. It can't be a condition because it's going to be effective at building permit stage for the driveways, but in recent map applications, we've been putting notes on to give advice to people that pull the map that there will be slope standards in effect pursuant to fire and life safety regs, and we can add that as a note on the conditions. It shows as a note for building department. I think that would be prudent to do.
All right, so that would amend this.
That would amend it wouldn't show as a condition. We added at the end, it says notes, and it just said, all driveways shall conform to county standards. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. It's just that we're still in the growing controversy stage, and I appreciate that.
Other items, Marina?
No, not on this one.
Okay, do we want to discuss them one at a time?
Well, this is 9B, I don't know if you want to do
We're
it.
going out of
We
order.
still-
finish the second
finish
one.
the
All right, okay, we'll finish with B. Any other board comments on item 9B? This is a single motion we're talking about from on the onset, so we'll not take action until the second has been discussed.
I just then have, since we're on 9B, the board gave direction that people have to connect to water and sewer systems, but that's not applying. This one's on public water, but not sewer.
This came before the
I
application.
understand that. But when we're Xing the 10 and 20, so if that, it's just really information for the applicant too,
Well, Mr.
how
Chairman,
would that work?
when we place the X upon the property, they have the right to use all of the underlying rights of that zoning district, with the exception of division. Okay, so they can do whatever is allowed on that parcel by zoning except divide it. That runs with the land, so if that parcel is, if either of those parcels are sold, the property owner, presumably in looking at what the zoning is, would recognize that those parcels are not divisible unless the general plan changes at some time in the future.
But the board's given direction that you have to be on water and sewer. So if
you will remember, this application was one of a number of them that were filed prior to those requirements.
I understand, Bob, but we're Xing the 10 and the 20.
Correct.
So when the general plan's done or what have you, is it pre-direction that falls with the 10 and 20? Or would it, if the 10 and the 20 are split, it will be post-direction?
The 10 and the 20 cannot be, if you would do this, they cannot be split
until such time as your board adopts a general plan amendment
Right.
that would authorize less than those parcel sizes. At that point, we would rezone the property to remove the X and zone them consistent with whatever your board says. So for the sake of discussion, if your board came back and said 10-acre minimum parcel sizes, the 20-acre, if it's in fact in excess of 20, could in theory be split. The 10-acre could not. The X would go away on both of them, and one would have the ability to divide, the other wouldn't because of the underlying minimum parcel size.
Then we have the caveat of sewer.
That is something that presumably you will also address with the general plan. And, you know, if you're saying that you do not want private wells and septic tanks in these areas, then you may, in essence, say 40 or 80 acre minimum parcel sizes without public sewer and water.
And so that they would just stay 20 and...
They would stay 20 until they can conform to the requirements of your amended general plan.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments on item 9B? All right, 9A. Supervisor Tryon?
Okay, I have some questions that I'd like to ask. A couple are just sort of house cleaning. Maybe, Bob, I'll ask them of you, but Jack and Jean, why don't you come on up? And one of the questions is, on just house cleaning, is the finishing of the intersection. They're going onto Big Trees Road and also onto Highway 4. When do you project the completion date for that work to be completed?
We're hoping, Tom, to have that completed sometime within the next 90 to 120 days. We ran into a lot of problems with Caltrans. We had the whole project approved. We had our encroachment permit. And Caltrans, personnel shift, and the new person came on board with Caltrans, and he decided he wanted something changed on the intersection. So they weren't supposed to do that. I mean, we had approved encroachment permit, but then you kind of have to bend what the new guy wants. So then we had to go back, redraw what he wanted.
Okay, but you think 90 to 100 days, both those intersections will be completed and basically in use?
Approximately.
Okay. Okay. And when do you think you'll start working on them again? Because they're basically, work has been suspended at this time.
We're hoping, one of the other reasons that George Reed did not want to work on it through the winter was...
I understand that.
The rains. So we're hoping to get started on it in the next couple of months. There's a few issues that we're dealing with trying to get...
Through Caltrans? Okay, but you think 90 to 100 days? Okay.
Ballpark. I don't know if somebody else comes in with Caltrans and they change their mind also. It's a hard agency.
Okay. Just housekeeping. On the bike paths, are they all within, the bike and pedestrian paths, are they all within the road right-of-ways? Or do we have some that are outside of the road right-of-way?
All bike paths are within road rights-of-way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess then I basically have two issues of concern. The first is on the road maintenance. I would like it to be conditioned such that that road maintenance agreement will be a PRD, that the roads will be taken into the county maintained system, that an assessment will be put in place for the homeowners, just like it would be anyway, but the roads would be in the county maintained system, and the county would maintain those roads from the assessment of the homeowners, rather than having a private homeowners association assessment. I don't think, as a developer, it probably affects the development anyway, but it does affect the long-term vitality of the community if we have deteriorating roads and a private association is not maintaining roads. Do you have any problem with having the road requirement be in the form of a PRD?
No, we just, Mike Miller just approached us.
Yeah, that's because I just approached Mike this morning, so why in the hell isn't this in here?
Yeah, that's the first we heard.
We had conversations earlier, and we wanted it to be a PRD, but it didn't seem to get in the conditions.
Yeah, any roads that are within this, within this project, within Murphy's Oaks, we've discussed it out there with Mike, and we have no objection to placing
Okay.
that road maintenance.
So then what you're going to have to work out with Public Works, then, if the board will approve that condition, is the reimbursement and having some cost of living or something in it so that we do have enough money to maintain the road from the residents within the development, and that has to be then worked out with Public Works.
Yeah, and we're willing to work with them on this project.
Okay. The other significant issue, I guess, and I mean, this isn't anything new, but the concern I have, and I talked to Bob about this morning, is I like development, I'm all for the development. The question is how, right now, we're up, the current condition says you will abide by the Bret Harte Benefit Basin requirements, or whatever it says. But we're redoing the Bret Harte Benefit Basin now. So I want to make sure that the conditions are such that it says that you will abide by the revised Bret Harte Benefit Basin conditions, because what we're doing, Rob Houghton's been contracted as an outside consultant to redo the benefit basin and to figure out all your guys' costs that are benefit basin oriented costs, and the fixing the Bret Harte Drive itself, and then we need to divide the number of parcels left in the benefit basin into that to come up with the fee that is needs to be paid at time of building permit. So what I don't want to do is approve this and then basically have people pull building permits and be paying the old fee instead of the new adjusted fee. I think that's probably in your interest, quite frankly, to have the new adjusted fee, because you're probably going to get some, you stand a possibility of getting some payback. I don't know how that's going to play out because we don't have the new fees. We don't exactly know how many lots will be left in the Dorn project to divide in to the fee. But we need something, Bob, in the condition that says it will be the revised benefit basin requirements, not the old benefit basin requirements. And at some point, we're going to have to sit down with those individuals that are impacted in the benefit basin and make a determination of the number of parcels that we will be dividing into that newly revised cost estimate. And we don't have that newly revised cost estimate yet, but I'm hoping it'll be here shortly. So, so my question is, Bob, how do we adjust these conditions to make sure that when a building permit, we don't want his building permits pulled on the old fees, and then we get the new fees, and now the new fees are the new conditions for future building permits will go up even more because we have fewer parcels to divide into the dollar amount for the improvement. So I just want to make very sure that we get this benefit basin right, because this is the end of it, and there's no more revisions after this. We have to have all the improvements done when these two projects are completed.
I think Rob has most of the numbers now.
Okay.
And then, like you said, the unknown is how many new parcels will be in this to be split up. But as far as
right, that's an unknown. But so the question is, when are you going to start pulling building permits? Because we have to have a number then that once the building permit's pulled, you can't go back and do an assessment. So you've got to get the right number at the time of the pulling of the building permit.
I don't know when you're going to, because you're not going to build, he doesn't intend to build houses in the Murphy's Oak subdivision. That's intended to be a bare lot subdivision that he'll sell individual lots to contractors to
okay, but when they come in, we can't say, well, you can't have a building permit. They have a right to a building permit if they own the lot. And so we have to have the numbers, and we have to have the number of lots we're dividing into that, into the cost number, so we can get the assessment correct.
Right.
And right now, Dorn's project, even if he did nothing further, I think has a fundamental right to, I think, around 43 lots. He's applying for, I think, around 80 or 82 lots or something. But that's subject to future action. So I doubt that we will be able to use 80 or 82 lots when we get Rob's number. Maybe we can do a reimbursement type of agreement if, in fact, those lot numbers go up. But that needs to get worked out and be very clear before, you start selling lots and people start coming in for building permits. And so I'm looking to staff to help me with the clarification there, to make sure that we have what's before us conditioned such that we can take these actions, and no building permits will get pulled until we have the new numbers, so we know what the assessments will be.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there apparently is a slight discrepancy. In one spot, we do clearly call out a requirement for a PRD. And that...
Well, I didn't find that in there, and I looked everywhere.
I realize that it didn't get translated into the conditions, the prior language...
Yeah, because we had that discussion, and I was very adamant about it.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised it wasn't there.
That language, I mean, we thought we had it all correct, so we can conform that if we can just have a 10-minute break after we get rid of the general plan issue.
Okay, that's fine. We can do the general plan.
We can do that, and then we'll go back to that. At the same time, we do have language, condition number 3-4-8, applicants shall provide above Public Works a declaration of intent to participate in the Bret Harte Benefit Basin, including participation in the basin as a condition on all lots within the development. That one, we're going to suggest you add the word "as revised."
Thank you.
So
that's what we talked about this morning. That has to say as revised, or we're stuck with the old conditions. Okay, so you'll take care of that.
We'll take a 10-minute break and...
Okay, well, if you'd like to do the general plan, then let's do the general plan and get that on the table. Is the board all right with a PRD? I hope
No, I don't support PRDs, but I've been consistent on that too. But Tom, it's not, the total project isn't a live or die. I just need to be on the record. I do not support PRDs because subdivisions that have their own road maintenance agreement are in much better condition than county roads. And two, when you do PRDs and people are now paying to the county, they then think that they have the right to these wonderful roads that Mr. Kautz is going to be putting in, and that just doesn't
Well, they do have the
occur.
rights, because it's going to be the same as...
It's not
It's the same as having the homeowners association, only instead of the money going to the homeowners association, it goes to the county, and it's in the county
I know,
maintained system.
and I don't
So we have
support that.
control of our circulation in the community centers. I mean, to me, that's just pretty fundamental.
That's from your perspective, not mine, but just for the record, I do not support PRDs.
Can I make one more comment? I want to clarify the intersection. I mean, we're working as fast as we can to get this done. I don't want, 90 to 100 days, if Caltrans throws another loop in here, I mean, we're working as fast as we can to get this done.
Okay.
I can't control Caltrans. So,
Well, just give me a call.
you have much...
I'll take care of that for you.
Okay. They're a tough agency on my level.
Yes, they are.
You got a lot of company in that, by the way. Nobody seems to be able to control it.
Okay, good.
But you can at least get the intersection done with Big Trees Road.
Yeah,
That's not really,
that's where...
that's a separate issue than the Caltrans and Highway 4 intersection, is it not? Or are they all
work
tied together in one contract?
Big Trees Road, yeah, that whole intersection there is Caltrans, and like I said, the new person came in, and it was ridiculous what he changed, but he changed it, and then we started the whole process again. And
I'm not quite sure of the design at the intersection there, but when it was an island, at one point, we were going to run a water line through the island so we could do some landscaping. Is there going to be any availability once the intersection is completed at Highway 4 for any landscaping to take place? Or is that basically going to all go away now?
I think that's gone away because Caltrans owns that. And I don't know what kind of regulations or what they put on us to try to maintain that. So as far as the landscaping in the old island, I don't think that will either.
Okay.
But I'll keep you informed as we're going, but it's a tough process.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from board or staff on items 9A and 9B?
Well, I have several questions on 9A, but did you want to do the general plan amendment first, or shall I just proceed?
I thought we would proceed with all conversation and then move through our votes.
If you're going to do that, just for the record, we have one change actually in
Drainage.
the drainage issue, and we provided language right here. This was substantially an error that occurred in the translation at the adoption of the minutes stage. The Planning Commission had approved the language as we are passing out to you. This was a matter of discussion on how we were going to deal with the drainage issues. We believed it had been incorporated correctly. It wasn't. This is the language that Public Works, the developer, the Planning Commission, and county staff have all agreed to. It just didn't get into it correctly, so we are asking this one change. I can read it so the public is aware of it.
It's on 9A, correct?
Excuse me, it's Public Works, this is on 9A, and it's Public Works Condition 3-29, drainage plan signed by a registered civil engineer, including hydrology, hydraulics, analysis in support of pre- and post-project conditions to verify the downstream drainage appurtenances can handle the increased flows. Flows are limited to those existing prior to the project or as approved by the Department of Public Works. So that gives the county the flexibility to look at that analysis, make sure there is no drainage impacts, and detention can be placed as needed for this project and, in fact, an adjacent property consistent with county code. So that clarification we would just put into the record, and the resolution of approval we provided for the chair actually incorporates that, and that is strictly an oversight on our part.
Was that a change requested by the Planning Commission, the staff, or the applicant?
It was a clarification that we worked out at the Planning Commission. We have agreement as to what needed to be done. It was just a matter of the language to get it to say so that it was understood by everybody.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I sent my questions ahead of time to Mr. Selman, and I did give a copy to Mr. Tryon. Bob, how do you want to work this?
You have a number of questions. That was his memo.
Yeah, and then I had another one.
Okay.
I added. Okay.
Keep up with the memos.
Well, all right. Okay, I'll do the first one was the propane tanks. There was the 25-foot or 50-foot as requested by the fire department. I wasn't, it sounded like the fire department was okay with 25, but I wasn't clear why, because I remember we had that project on Highway 12, and that was very controversial about the propane tanks there.
Right.
And so...
I cannot tell you what fire officials review when they look at these. The specific project was sent to the fire chief locally, and they did approve it. We do have a letter from the fire agency that says it is allowed with the easement. So it is acceptable to the fire agency, which is the requirement.
Because my concern is once they go in, then people are going to start questioning. I mean, you go down to Lockford or Plymouth, whatever that is, and there's a huge tank right behind that house, right on Highway 88.
That's Lockford.
Lockford, thank you. I mean, everybody comments on that, and here we're going to have one in downtown, several of them, if I remember correctly. So I just want to make sure that
This is based on fire codes and any mitigation that the fire chief felt was necessary. We usually allow our agreement is that the fire chiefs make the determination, provided that they are in with code, and otherwise then we have to step in. However, we don't address the aesthetics of the issue. So if there's an aesthetic issue, you can increase that or determine that it be elsewhere. If that's what if the scenic value of the highway or some other issue is there, that can be an additional condition that's over and above what's required by fire code.
I believe the applicant has a comment on this topic, and this would be a good time to make it.
Perhaps I can clarify this. Because of the number of tanks, it is required that there be a 50-foot setback for any residential type development. The residential lots that are both westerly and easterly of this proposed tank farm site, we are maintaining a 50-foot setback So that, we satisfied the fire district on that. What we did ask them to consider, and which they favorably approved, was, we said if we can agree to put an additional 25-foot building setback on the sewage lift station site, which is in front of this LPG tank, and put no buildings on it, no above-ground structures, then they agreed that their setback on the parcel for the LPG tanks would be in 25. So we end up with 25 on one lot, 25 on the next lot. It's not a residential lot, it's a sewage lift station lot.
Okay.
And so that's what the 25 addresses, is sewage lift
Okay.
station.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The next one is mitigations for the sheriff's office, and they had asked for some mitigations. We just did a project where mitigations were given to the sheriff's office, and we're not doing it now.
It is our understanding at this point, I mean, this is substantially an infill project. The site is already surrounded by roads in all directions. The sheriff's office already services this area generally, and we're not aware that there were specific mitigations beyond what was provided in your staff report, or questions even beyond what was provided in the staff report. That the real issue on the other projects is where we were building virtually new communities or areas that have no experience with police communications or sheriff's communications. There we have always required that there be testing for the adequacy of communications. We had no such comment or no problem identified in this one as near as I can tell. So there was no need. Again, this is an area that is virtually in the downtown part of the community versus creating a new community someplace else. And we do not yet have a procedure for sheriff's
Facility fees.
Correct, or personnel fees. That is accomplished so far only under a VA development agreement for a specific plan, and that is not the case.
This goes back to action the board really needs to look at. We're talking about cumulative effects of approving all these projects, parcel splits, we're growing and we're not doing anything as a board. And here's 46 units going in, and we're missing the boat again. Mitigation measure 3.4.8, my favorite topic, Oaks. It's a 3-run ratio. It doesn't have to be on the property. There was no time frame for success, as 7 years as we've usually done. And the mitigation fee into the Oak Woodlands Conservation Program, I believe this was discussed at board at one time, about we had no place within the county.
Correct.
So where's that money going? And
What we have been doing to date is when we have a requirement for in lieu dedication, we have actually been escrowing the funds. We've set it aside, hopefully until we can get a location in the county where that fund could be used, as opposed to having to send it back to Sacramento or someplace else. As long as we can, that's going to be our strategy, and we're going to do whatever we can.
so this project will not be mitigating any 3-to-1 ratio on the project?
It can do mitigation on site. It cannot exceed more than 50% of any required mitigation, and there is very little mitigation required on this project site. So it's very simple to deal with that, and we will finalize that at the final.
But there's no determination of success, though, in the mitigation?
Once there is a requirement, we always require it be for 7 years.
But that's usually in the planning stages, in the documents, not in the permit stage. So...
If need be, we can certainly clarify that if there is planting, that they shall be sustainable for a 7-year period.
So, but there's nothing saying that the applicant has to do that, though?
I believe.
I couldn't find it. I found the 3-to-1 ratio.
It should be in the mitigation measures.
I didn't find, no, he has an option.
No, he has the option.
But he has a 3-to-1 ratio, but I didn't see it say anything about 7 years.
If there is a flat payment That covers the mitigation requirement.
That- I understand
Only,
that.
only the plantings actually require the maintenance period. And I haven't memorized this document, so. It's mitigation measure 3.4.8, which is
Right.
also then included as a condition of the map. So we would make sure that the implementing language is in fact in place and complete before we authorize the reporting of the map.
Okay, it says mitigated to a 3.1, that's fine, but it doesn't say 7 years.
I think what Marina may be referencing is that other things that we've had under consideration over the last year have included that particular language and have been incorporated into it. I'd be curious whether the applicant has any objection to that.
The mitigation requirement is substantially the ones they have to assure survive for the 7 years. So that would be new planting. What we're trying to do is first of all, avoidance on this one.
What?
Avoidance. Try to avoid losing any of these.
Right, I
segments.
understand that.
Okay, so if it is of a concern, we certainly can add the language to that mitigation measure that they will be.
I mean, I've just learned doing enough of these, if it isn't in, it doesn't occur. The applicant has the choice, I understand, of going to the conservation program or of mitigating on site. And if mitigated on site for 3 to 1, it should be for 7 years. Whether it's the applicant or the person who buys the parcel and wants to build on it. So if it's a bare lot sale, as I understood Mr. Deaver to say, then it's not going to be the applicant, it will be whomever buys the parcel. Okay. And
If I could address that just real quickly, why there's a difference in this is, in the other projects that have come forward, there's been planting occurring, and then we specifically talk about the 7-year. In this case, they're saying that they're going to preserve existing trees rather than replanting. So the preservation doesn't trigger the 7 years. However, the option is for them to pay or plant, and then they would have to submit a plan to us that would incorporate the 7 years in the plan before we approve it. That's why it doesn't actually state it, is because it's the preservation. We can amend our standard conditions so that we make it clear in the future when people take the preservation option that if they so choose later on to mitigate, that they will have the 7-year standard.
But my concern here is the applicant's going to sell the parcels. So if there's trees, if there are these oak trees on the parcel, then the obligation doesn't fall to the applicant, but to the person buying the parcel.
They would have to be indicated on their site plan. We have to put a method in place so that when someone pulls, this is why we have clearances go through planning that come in for building permits. The planner would be responsible when they do the clearance for indicating any oak trees on site that were designated to be preserved. And then those conditions would be placed on the homeowner. They'd be enforced during the building permit review. So there will be a condition placed on the building, it'd just be on the building permit as opposed to the actual owner of the property right now, for preservation purposes.
I understand that.
There is no way to guarantee the 7 years on a site that's going to be sold and developed later. Unless you want...
Why do we even have a 3 to 1 ratio?
Unless you want...
Why is it even in there?
Well, it's just to accomplish the subdivision, though.
But he can do the subdivision, not take out a tree.
Right.
And then the trees disappear.
But he has to designate those that he's telling us that he has to designate those trees marked for preservation and that will be caught at the building permit stage when
Somebody else,
applicant comes in for a building permit. They're going to have to
correct.
show where the building is going to go and what trees may be destroyed. The developer here has no way to know who's going to build on that or what
That's
they're going to build.
exactly what I'm saying.
It's caught at the building permit stage.
Well, there's nothing in here,
That's
in
why
my
it goes-
feeling, that will preserve it. So
I would
I'm
ask if county council could comment on whether or not we can require the developer to place a note on the sales documents that the trees have to be preserved. That might be one way that to put
Let me
some
ask it
urgency.
in a different way. Is there a mechanism that is legal that can be applied to the concern that Marita raises?
I mean, the applicant's gone. I know, well, I'm tired of seeing the lands, the parcels decimated, because there's nothing that restricts the person who comes in and builds the property. I want to
Well,
preserve.
Rita, basically what you're saying is that, once somebody builds a home, they can't, have control of the trees on their parcel.
No,
I mean, I'm
no,
not
Tom,
willing to
that's
go there.
not what I'm saying.
I mean, the environmental review is basically for the developer. It's not for somebody that owns a home on a parcel to come in and start deciding.
Tom, that's not what I'm saying.
So what are you saying?
Is that the parcels, it says there's a subdivision, it's lot sale, someone comes in, the map might say we want to preserve these trees, but to get the house on the parcel, you're going to have to take down the oaks. And Janice is standing there to tell me,
The developer can't tell who's going to build what when.
I understand that. I don't care, no offense, Jack, I don't care about the developer. I'm now post-developer, and I want to see some protection mechanisms here so that what's there is preserved or replanted on a 3-to-1, 7-year basis. And if I'm wrong, Mrs. Elliott will tell me, Ms. Elliott.
Tell her, Ms. Elliott.
Janice Elliott, County Council. Bob and I have had numerous conversations about the fact that once a private owner owns the property, basically the issue is enforcement of the conditions of approval. The conditions of approval and the mitigation measures go with the property, not the owner of the property. So basically what you need to be prepared to do is to enforce the conditions of approval against anybody who does pull a building permit and pulls down a tree that is shown to be protected. And the mechanism for doing that...
And pulls down a tree when?
When it's shown on the plan that they're not supposed to cut down that tree. It's part of the mitigation measures for approval of
with
this
the
project.
property.
Right. We've never gotten to that stage, but every time we put one of these types of mitigation measures or conditions on a project, in essence what you're saying, if a private property owner violates that in the future, the board needs to be prepared to take enforcement action, which is basically a lawsuit. Code enforcement or lawsuit. In this case, it would be a breach of contract cause of action because this is a contract, a condition of approval and a mitigation measure.
We have gotten better at this. We are now designating building envelopes on many projects when there's a preservation issue. They can only build in that building envelope. It's recorded on the map, and they're bound by it. But the reality is, these conditions are supposed to mitigate CEQA. They need to be real. And if we're not going to make sure that they're enforced in perpetuity, then they're just lip service, and we shouldn't be doing that.
I agree.
I disagree. I don't think you can go 10 or 20 years down the road and tell a property owner that you can't remove a tree if the tree's putting the house at risk or the property at risk, et cetera. We're going to have the county going around deciding, what tree you can remove when you landscape and that sort of thing. That's ridiculous. I mean, I don't think we belong there. I don't think we want to go there. I think you're just opening a can of worms of the first order.
Then if the board feels that way, they need to find alternative methods of mitigation. We're not saying that you have to protect the tree, but you have to mitigate the loss of trees. So if you don't want to enforce preservation, you're putting condition of preservation on a map, you don't want to enforce that, then you need to find other ways to mitigate the loss of the oaks.
I thought we slid into this conversation on not on the rigid formulations we just heard, but on the question of if you do take out a protected tree, you have a 3-to-1, and the question is whether that translates into the other properties. We just had an answer to that, and now the other question is, are we having the same conditions that we've made consistent over the last couple of years, where we say it's not just good enough to plant a tree, but you have to assure that it survives for 7 years, and the question is whether this can be placed into this, how the applicant feels about it, and whether this is something we wish to be consistent on in this project. Isn't that the question?
Well, we answered that question
cut a tree. It's a question, if you do cut a protected tree, what are your obligations in planting new ones? That's
And the answer is, it is consistent. It's not stated in the condition, but it is part of our process. If they wanted to cut the trees, they have to come in with a plan, and that's part of our process for approval of plans. So it is consistent, even though it's not stated.
It's a 3-to-1 ratio. Right. And that's what it says.
And a 7-year maintenance
plan. That's what
plan.
we're dealing with, is we're dealing with the applicant. We're not dealing with people after the applicant. So
Janice has just corrected us on that.
Well, keep in mind that this is set by state law. State law says that you can do 50% replanting, 50% contribution to the oak tree fund. In essence, the issues you're talking about here today are things that should come up when we do an oak tree ordinance, or an open space program, and we set aside off-site areas where we want to use this money, or we actually have off-site areas where people can do their replanting 3-to-1. But I believe what Marita's asking is this mitigation measure, if you read it, it appears to me the intent of it is exactly as stated by staff, that he's not really going to do 3-to-1 replanting on the site because it's such a small area and there's small lots. But to the extent that he does do a 3-to-1 replanting, you're correct. We should be consistent, and we can just, add in there if you want. It doesn't change this particular mitigation measure in any respect, that any replanting anywhere needs a 7-year survival rate. I do think, though, that the intent is they're going to preserve and pay the 50%. That's how I read the mitigation measure.
it recommends that.
Thank you. That's fine.
Any other questions?
No, so that will be added, assuming the applicant understands. My next one was 3.1.2. Sorry, I should have sent it to you, too. I didn't have your email at 10 o'clock last night. 150 watts on small lots. Anything in excess? I thought that seemed a little high, so where did that come from? Because these are not large parcels.
That was a mitigation measure that was recommended by our consultants, and I think what we're looking at is outdoor lighting is obviously a little different than indoor lighting, and in order to be effective, you have to have enough power there to actually do some lighting. Our county requirement is only that the direct light cut off at the property line. So they must be down shielded, and any lighting near a property line must be shielded in such a way that the direct light stops at the property line. That's the extent of our ordinance. This is an attempt to try to ameliorate the whole issue of lighting a little bit further than we normally do by placing a wattage limit.
Gee, if we had a dark sky ordinance, we wouldn't have to worry about this, Mr.
You would still probably have many of the same problems, because you're going to have to set standards. I mean, that's one of the problems to address that specifically. One of the problems with any ordinance, including a dark sky ordinance, is you have to set standards, and they have to be in some manner reasonable to accomplish the purpose of lighting. And if you set a standard in an ordinance that doesn't accomplish the basic goal of providing a safe access or a driveway or such other illumination, then the ordinance isn't effective either. So, I mean, it's a choice. At some point, every ordinance is going to have a maximum threshold. Where that is, we don't know yet. And it does have to be enforceable. And let me say one thing. There is a problem that I will tell you, having dealt with a dark sky ordinance at one time. It's real hard to have a dark sky ordinance and enforce it when anybody can go down to any hardware store and buy lights that violate it and it virtually takes no permits in order to swap out a light bulb or anything else on a project site. I mean, there's a real enforcement issue that we do have to consider as we try to deal with this. I think this is a reasonable attempt to try to limit. Even this one may be difficult to enforce.
It's going to be hard to see the stars.
Yep.
And
Move.
it would be nice to have energy efficient lights too, but we're not there yet as a county. The other, stop laughing, Tryon. Mitigation.
It's a chorus.
Well, I'm sorry. You know, I only have one opportunity to do this, so
contraire.
just stop it.
Okay.
So mitigation
One opportunity each
3.0.
week.
I would ask...
I think we need to outlaw flashlights.
Marita Callaway has the floor, and I would request that people listen until she is complete and make their comments at that time.
Mitigation 3.11.1, hours of operation on Saturday. Mr. Couch, you had said 7 to 5 on Saturday. I was thinking more like 8 to 4. I mean, because it's a Saturday, and you were doing 6 days a week construction. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Construction, obviously, stayed down quite a bit.
Oh, I know.
But-
I mean, not that we wanted to, we'd like you to move on, but considering how populated that area has become.
No, 8 to 4 is fine. For Saturdays.
For Saturdays,
For Saturday.
For Saturdays, okay.
Saturday only.
Yeah, that's fine.
Again, we would find, we'll reflect that as a change to both the mitigation measure and the condition, with a finding that it's not a significant change.
Okay. No, it's not, only because we've had some recently where they were working on Saturdays and...
Of course, if you're the worker out there and it's 105-degree day,
Well, then...
you would rather start a little earlier in the morning rather than a little later.
Well, then if the temperature's 105, they can start at 5 in the morning and
There you
quit
go.
at
Now you're
1.
talking.
Okay, Bob, number C, page 2 of 5, the resolution. Did I read that wrong?
No, you probably read it right, we typed it wrong.
Okay,
This is
thank
not-
you.
That's a typo, disregard that, we'll fix that.
Thank you.
Old Eagle Eyes has caught another one.
Air quality deals with the construction, I understood that. Again, post-construction, wood stove, fireplaces, I know their stoves are EPA these days, but...
Those installations are already regulated by county code, we have nothing to add to that.
Okay, so it'd be just construction?
Right.
Okay, and then, the driveways, I couldn't find it, but I read it. I want to be consistent, I believe, and I know it doesn't apply to this area because it's relatively flat, but I just thought for the record, it said driveways, I thought it said, I could be mistaken because I couldn't find it, not to exceed 20%. Should it then not be staying consistent, 16%, mitigated to 16 without a cap?
Yes, it should, however, since the site is virtually flat, it probably doesn't belong in there at all.
Okay.
Okay, that is simply not an issue on this site, to my knowledge.
It wasn't an issue because it is flat, but I just felt for the record,
Yeah, well-
that we should be consistent on that.
Absolutely, we'll try to find that language and either delete it or be consistent, one or the other.
Okay, thank you. And of course, the letter from the Newsoms regarding the project, it really wasn't so much project-driven as county-driven, and what we have done or not done, and I felt like that should be addressed.
Staff did attempt to look at that. On page 5 of the staff report, we did respond that we were unable to locate any sort of project that did what these folks represented. I don't know whether it was just an inquiry, can I do this, and the county's response apparently was different. I don't know. Obviously, the county is consistent in its application of the policies of the general plan when it adopts a general plan change. And how they do that and where they do it is always the board's choice. So we weren't able to locate any specific project that individual was talking about that was ever...
Yeah, and of course, he's talking 1989, 1990, so you're talking 18 to 19 years ago, and of course, the conditions would be different then. We didn't form the Bret Harte benefit basin, I think it was like 92, is that correct, Bob? Yeah. So you probably had a moratorium. You had a moratorium on Bret Harte Drive because we had to do the benefit basin to get the moratorium away. So when that project was done, what they were looking at is not being, is those traffic flow not using Bret Harte Drive, but having to use Church Street and go down to Main Street. And obviously, the mitigations on that would be considerably different than what we'd be talking about today. And that property, even when the benefit basin was formed, was not included in the benefit basin since it basically had met its earlier approval requirements. So, to come in and say, well, geez, it was different 18 or 19 years ago, yes, it was different 18 or 19 years ago.
Well, I just felt that it needed to be openly addressed, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Selman.
Okay, we have heard from the delegation from Ebbets Pass. Do other supervisors have a comment or two on this? Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, I thought at the onset of all this that we weren't going to get into this degree of specificity at this point. We were going to rule on the resolution about the general plan amendment first and then dive into the details. Are we just going to...
Well, we can do it all at once.
Yeah, I'd asked the board to consider all matters prior to taking action on either of those, actually, and that was the early instruction from the chair, if you'd like to change that.
It's a little late.
It's a little late.
Yeah. I'm looking at an aerial photograph on Google Earth here on this project, and we're doing an awful lot of discussion about things that don't exist. And this property was a former sanitarium site. I mean, I see a lot of conifer trees on it that were planted, I suppose, during the time that it was part of the sanitarium. There is an adjacent subdivision that literally is devoid of trees. I would hope that this project would certainly attempt to take advantage of the existence of some of these trees where appropriate. And I've been a builder for a long time, and I know that you can't sometimes live with a big pine tree right in the middle of your living room. You have to make certain decisions. But I don't see where the oaks are a huge issue on this parcel at all. I mean, there might be some along the creek there that if they're larger than 6 inches in diameter, they'd be a concern. So anyway, I think that common sense and state law will prevail there to make sure that we don't go too far afield. This is an infill project. Frankly, I don't see any difficulties with it at all. On the other project, am I right that we're kind of mixing and matching? Just put it in a bag and shake it up? The other project, I think that what I'm sensing is that the most people are most sensitive. The gentleman in the back there was talking about all this building that's likely to occur on that hillside. If I'm looking at his parcels properly, it looks like that they are approximately 5-acre size, and the smallest parcel on this subdivision appears to be almost 8 acres. If the folks in this little township prevail in the sentiments that I hear expressed up in there, that they want to kind of maintain the existing fabric of the landscape, I really seriously doubt whether this will be forced into a position where there are going to be less than one house on a minimum 5-acre parcel. If you start with a 7-acre parcel and the minimum is 5, there's no way you can divide that parcel. You're going to end up with a house on a 7.8-acre parcel. So that in my mind doesn't really
represent a huge departure from the fabric that's there. I was really perplexed about the particular configuration of this subparcel C, the way that it went out on an east-westerly line and then dived south and then returned back westerly again, easterly. But in looking again at the beauty of being able to look on these Google Earth programs is that it answers some of those questions, and I see that this, the explanation lies in the fact that there's an existing vineyard, that those are the boundaries that the applicant has tried to maintain in that particular parcel. So seemingly that seems to be an appropriate sensitivity to what's on the ground and planning around it. So that's great, and I don't see the huge likelihood that there's going to be mounting pressures, hue and cry to reduce the size of the parcels. Just for the record, Marita, the steepest slope on this project is a 500-foot-long driveway going to an existing parcel. The gradient, average gradient on that particular part, which is the steepest, I want to emphasize on this parcel, is currently 14%. So it's under the 16% that seems to be suddenly the rage around here. I just would like to summarize that I see no particular difficulties with either of these projects as they are presented.
Thank you, Russ. Bill, any comments?
Just a couple. I agree. I don't see any particular difficulty with either one of these projects. On Project A in Murphy's, I agree with Supervisor Tryon with regard to the PRDs, the permanent road divisions. As a matter of fact, I'm in favor of those across the board, unless there's some extenuating circumstances. In respect to the comment that Rita made, she's absolutely right. In some cases, the private road maintenance agreements have worked better for some people in the county than being in the county road system, but I think those are few and far between. And what we find mostly is that the private road maintenance agreements have resulted in poorer roads by and large, and in some places the roads are impassable, literally. So I'm weighing that, and I think that if there's a county road, they have a system, they have a prioritizing formula, and I think if a county road were to get to a point where we're impassable, I believe it would be at the top of the priority, and that's just my belief. So I do support the idea of a PRD, and specifically with this subdivision. I agree with the addition to this project requirement that the benefit basin be in compliance with the new or the current rates. That's an important addition. The only other thing about that particular project is with the oaks, and I don't think that we should just cut down oaks indiscriminately, but when I was younger, I made a lot of money selling firewood on the side, so I'm not opposed to cutting an oak tree down when it needs to be cut down. That aside, that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, I realize, but I don't understand how we could put requirements on the developer of a subdivision to guarantee what a homeowner is going to do years and years in the future. I just don't think it's workable. What we're starting to do now, if I understand correctly, is if during the initial stage, during the approval stage for the development, if there are certain trees that are designated for survival, they're not going to be molested or cut down or anything else. If that goes with the property, if there's some way then to advise a property owner, but you're going to get into disclosure issues with whoever sells the property to whoever, to whoever, to whoever. I mean, in the meantime, that just scares the heck out of me. If you buy a piece of property and there's some oak trees on it and you build a home without touching any oak trees, what if you decide to plant a lawn there and irrigate the lawn and kill the oak tree? Well, what if you put a patio around that oak tree and you kill the oak tree because you didn't know any better? This could just get crazy for me. So in those instances where you have large lots, those places that deal with oak canopies that are not designated as infills, et cetera, like that, I can see building envelopes. But for an infill project, it's exactly what it is. It's infill. It's dense development. We have people on sewer and water, places for people to live, and keep the open space on the outside. I think the mitigation measures that are in there for the oaks are just fine the way they are. And with the other project, the one up in the West Point area, I don't see anything for me that would stop this project. I'm in favor of it. I'm going to go on good faith that the report that the staff has to the Planning Department and Planning Commission that they have addressed the drainage issues adequately. The land division with the X or parcel size to stay at 10 and 20 for the two larger parcels. The fire access seems to be satisfied for the chiefs up there that make that decision. And as the project goes forward, I believe that the county has addressed the drainage control grading ordinance, has something to do with that. When the owners of the property go to build, there will be drainage issues addressed with their building permit. And so I don't have any problem with that. I'm in favor, or I support both projects.
Okay, and I guess I'll call on myself to make comments as well. As usual, when we come along these quarterly moments, it's an opportunity for us to take a look at policies and ordinances that we don't have. And so we have these discussions, which I'm becoming fairly familiar with over the last 3 years. I think it would help all of us to save time and get more clarity for people who are making applications, that we do have an oak ordinance that's consistent with law, and that we find a way to apply it equally to all parcels and all applicants. It is not meaningful to have a 3-to-1 and everybody has to plant something, but that ends it. We've been pretty consistent about the 7-year stuff, and I would hope that we'd be able to make that consistent, but we have no basis except our own whimsy at the moment and state law to guide us. I'm not calling any person whimsical. I'm saying all of us are winging it because we don't have the documents that would be our guide, and I would suggest that we get quickly on to that with oaks. I also think that the discussion, while interesting on PRDs, has not been fully vetted with this board, and that we need to actually have a conversation. There's some policy implications that would be worth listening to our Public Works Department taking a look carefully at how past policies have worked or not worked.
We did have that study session,
yes,
and the board gave direction to do PRDs, so
well,
we did that and had the discussion on it.
I believe some of the issues being raised are maybe beyond that original discussion, and I'm not suggesting that we revisit those original issues, but that we might want to have further discussion on how we're doing in those. I agree that the private roads in some of these subdivisions are a catastrophe, and that there's no way out for some places. I think Rancho in particular seems to be in a world of hurt, and some of the other subdivisions have managed to vote down any possibility of ever having workable roads repeatedly. So I think those kinds of things are the stuff I'm talking about, revisiting and how we deal with that.
That's not new development, though.
That's correct. It's separate. It's separate from this.
I agree.
But it's an important problem and issue that needs to be addressed. So I believe on the item 9A that with the drainage adjustment, I would support the making consistent our language on oaks, and dealing with the Saturday work. I think this is all fine, and I don't have a reason to oppose it. We have not heard any neighbor opposition. It is infill, and it makes sense. The other project, 9B, we've heard from a neighbor who has concern about his pond. Maybe other neighbors have concern about their pond, and it would strike me that the time of construction, the nature of construction, the way we apply our grading ordinance should be mindful of that. And I would hope that just as a matter of courtesy, that the project proponent would make sure that there is no damage to surrounding, to any of the neighbors. And I would hope that the department would make sure that that is carefully considered. That said, I guess we're at the end of our...
Okay.
I think that's my question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, if you hit that one thing, that will do that. Well, would you...
That got my attention.
Bob, are you asking for basically to do the general plan amendment separate from the rest of the...
Yes, we will move to the consideration of the general plan amendment, which is in a single motion.
But I think we have to do the mitigated negative declaration with it, do we not?
Yes.
Okay. Then, Mr. Chair, on item 9A, I would move the board pass a motion to adopt a resolution to approve a general plan amendment based upon the findings set forth in Exhibit A with a negative deck. And on item 9B, that the Board of Supervisors pass a motion to adopt a resolution to approve a general plan amendment based upon the findings set forth in Exhibit B with a negative deck.
Is that the language that you require?
That's fine.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? In that event, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes on a 5-0 vote.
They needed a 10-minute recess.
Yes.
Very short recess.
We need a...
Clarify this last language, and we should be fine.
Yes. We'll take now a 10-minute recess. Well, hold on a second. Do we want to do 9A so...
Or 9B.
No, excuse me, do we want to do 9B so they can leave? All right, let's take action on 9B, and that way one person can...
Are you in favor of 9B, Mr. Chair?
I express myself on that. I'm in favor of it, and I presume the neighbor courtesy that I referred to will be a part of that.
Okay, then I'd move, I think we still need to do another negative mitigated next, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so the Board of Supervisors adopt a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring program with one finding and one mitigation measure as set forth in the staff report and attached Exhibit B. Secondly, pass a motion authorizing the chair to sign an ordinance to approve 2-6-129 zoning amendment based upon the findings set forth in the ordinance. And then the third recommendation, pass a motion authorizing the chair to sign a resolution approving a tentative parcel map for 2-6-129, including the amended conditions of approval based upon the findings and conditions as set forth in the resolution.
Okay, is there a second to that? There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, now we take a recess.
We will now take a 10-minute recess so that the language can be reconciled. This is on a 5-0 vote.
Relative to the zone change, there is a motion. Staff would recommend approval as submitted.
Then also move based on the findings set forth in the ordinance.
There's a motion. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Relative to the tentative subdivision tract map, staff has 3 amendments to that language, and they are as follows. On condition, Public Works Condition 3-1-1, there is a requirement for dedication and improvements to curb gutter that is off-site at the frontage in front of the Hayford property. Public Works and staff have agreed that should be dropped as an off-site improvement that is not this applicant's burden. We would recommend that the condition be modified to read exactly as it does down to the very last sentence, and that last sentence be dropped.
You said 3.1.1?
Yes, it's on page 17 of the, should be 17 of the approval. Is it 2 sentences? Is there a second period in there? Oh, okay. The last two sentences. Applicant shall extend improvements to Bret Harte Drive to match existing roadway between curves in the west portion of okay, so we'll, excuse me, I guess it's the last two sentences.
Okay.
Okay, so that one, that, again, that's simply an off-site improvement that Public Works agreed can and should be dropped. The second is to place the PRD language. That language was previously included and it was dropped. There is language that was in a prior letter. We will just incorporate that as the condition 3-4-7 is the language relative to the maintenance. We will substitute PRD
And that will include
language.
bikeways and all other improvements within the right-of-way.
Includes everything within the right-of-way.
Bike paths.
And prescribes exactly
And
how it should be
pedestrian
done.
paths. Okay.
That was based on an earlier Public Works recommendation. The applicant has reviewed it and has agreed to it. The next condition, number 8, we would modify by, this is dealing with the benefit basin. It is participation in the basin as revised as a condition. That's that matter we talked about earlier. So with those...
And that can control the building permits, et cetera, until we get the, till Rob finishes his analysis.
That is
and
correct.
once we agree on that analysis, then we have to sit down and divide the number of lots into it that we have, and if there's a reimbursement agreement, then we need to work on that so that we get the appropriate compensation at the building permit stage.
That is correct.
Okay. Then, Mr. Chair, I would move that the board pass a motion authorizing the chair to sign a resolution approving a tentative subdivision tract map for 2-6-47, including the amended map notes based upon the findings and conditions that set forth in the resolution and as just amended by staff.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you for your patience and participation today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Your government at work. Oh, Lord.
Okay, we move now to what was to be our 10:30 item, which was the Ag Department Auditor Controller discussion and possible action. This is item 10, amending the fiscal year budget for Department of Agriculture, authorizing purchase of a capital asset new vehicle along with a budget transfer. This requires a 4/5 vote of the board.
Good morning, Mary Munzak, Commissioner. Last year at final budget, I made a request to purchase a 1-ton pickup truck. I didn't have any funds to cover such a pickup truck, and my request was met with an overwhelming negative response, meaning denial, meaning out of the question. Well, I'm back again asking for approval to purchase a 1-ton pickup truck for the weed crew. However, I do have funding this time. The department has received unanticipated funds from the California Department of Food and Agriculture in the amount of $24,811 and some change. This came from unanticipated gas tax. With that unanticipated funding, I am requesting the approval of the purchase of this vehicle. The Ag Department needs to replace a 1991 Ford pickup truck that is in a state of disrepair, neglect. It's dilapidated, run down. I don't know what other kinds of words to use for it. We purchased this truck for $3,800, and every year we are plugging in about $3,000 to keep the thing running. We had an estimate, a verbal estimate, that for another $5,000 we could get it up and running pretty good. So this year, kick in an additional $5,000. Maybe it'll keep going for a couple of years. So, I mean, as Brian Moss says, we're throwing good money after bad money. So this new vehicle will actually replace 2 trucks We have two 1991s we'd like to get rid of. The first one is the really dilapidated one. It was an East Bay mud truck. We paid $3,800 for it. That one needs to go away. The second truck that will be replaced is a 1991 quarter-ton Ford. It, again, is run down and always needing repairs. There are individuals in my office, John Castile particularly, that has worked diligently to bring in funding for the weed program. Just this year, he has brought in an additional let me see how much. This year, I think he's brought in at least $7,000 from final budget for weed funding. He has been able to obtain funding for the year 2008-2009 in excess of $40,000 for weed projects. This truck is needed so that we can fulfill those projects. I have administration support. Mr. Lawton supports this purchase. Shirley Ryan has approved this purchase. And I am seeking an approval of the resolution and a budget transfer so we can get this new truck.
Is this the death truck that Lucy always referred to, or the...
It very well could be.
I'll move the item, Mr. Chair.
I have a couple of comments.
A couple of comments here. We have a motion and a second, and under those, we'll have this discussion.
Yes,
Bill?
just take a second, and I'm very much in support of this, so don't get nervous. But the last time that I just talked to Brian about this, I didn't notice this until yesterday, and these are just some little housekeeping things. I remember last time Brian came to us with a flatbed pickup to buy. There's no such thing as a flatbed pickup. And you might think that's trite, but it's not trite when it comes to the DMV or enforcement actions through, guess who, CHP. So, you are purchasing a pickup, and I'm not sure how you're going to accomplish the change to a flatbed, but it indicates in here that you have the funds in 5182 to cover the cost of removing the box and installing a flatbed. Well, that's fine, but now you no longer have a pickup.
What do you have?
You have a flatbed. Are they the same thing? Not even close. Not in the vehicle code.
So what costs the more to...
So, no, it's just that when this happens, and it'd be easier if I could talk to somebody, maybe Mike Miller in admin, since he's doing this now, and explain to him how this works, or let me look at things. So they went out to bid for a pickup to make it into a flatbed. In the future, and he may have done this, don't misunderstand me, but in the future you might want to put your bid out for an incomplete cab and chassis. That way you don't buy the pickup bed. You just get it delivered, you put and it comes incomplete, so it's not registered as anything until you complete it, and then it's registered as a flatbed. So with this, if you get it as a pickup, and whoever puts the flatbed on it, whatever they do with the pickup bed, it gets discarded or put someplace or sold or whatever. Now you put a flatbed on it, it is no longer a pickup, it is a flatbed. They're completely different vehicles. They're described differently in the vehicle code. They have different rules that apply to them. First of all, the county has a motor carrier property permit, and that's required for all commercial vehicles that haul, or the gross vehicle weight rating is over a certain amount. The pickups, they give an exemption to, because a pickup is something that everyday people buy, and they make pickups bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. And so I think the limit for a pickup now is $11,500 for gross vehicle weight rating. But that goes away when it's no longer a pickup. Now that it's a flatbed, you're back down to not what it weighs, but the gross vehicle weight rating, what it's allowed to weigh when it's fully loaded. If that's 10,001 pounds, then it's required to have a motor carrier property permit, even if it has exempt registration. The county has that. That's the CA numbers that you see on trucks. But this has to be included in that list of vehicles now that are under the county's motor carrier property permit, and that CA number has to be displayed. The other thing, there's some equipment requirements with anything that has a bed on it, which I'm assuming this one will be, of 80 inches or more. And so there's just some requirements there. I'm just bringing this up so that you know you don't have a pickup. And it is important. It can be, if for nothing else, when you go to survey this vehicle and you want to sell it, and you got this pickup for sale, and they say, well, I thought you had a pickup for sale. Well, we do, it's right there. Well, that's not a pickup. And it just helps going down the line. So when you get this vehicle, make sure that these things are checked out. Ask somebody, ask myself, or ask somebody else just what you need to do to make sure that going forward you don't have problems with the paperwork in the future.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Bill Claudino, the only supervisor in board history who can recite the vehicle code backwards. Amazing.
God.
Actually, if we could have a trivia bee someday that would just do the vehicle code, I believe we have a board entrance in this. Russ, do you have a comment?
Well, Bill, I had similar concerns about this, so I called Mike Miller, and it turns out that the price that we got on this vehicle for a four-wheel drive 1 ton is really quite remarkably low. And the justification for that is it's currently on the lot over in Sonora. And Mike has, as usual, been doing really a diligent job on this. That he worked out the arrangements so that the dealership is going to take the bed off, credit it back to the county on the transaction, and then install the bed on it. So it's going to be, like you say, it'll be a flat bed utility type of truck. But the explanation, I was satisfied with Mike's explanation that they had specifically targeted this particular one, and they did get a credit back for the bed.
Well, that's fine, as long as you take care of the DMV stuff, because if this says a pickup, it's not going to be a pickup, so.
All right, so we have a motion, a second. Are we going to give the poor lady a vote?
Yeah.
All right. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Got your truck.
Thank you very much. The staff, thank you. Brought smiles to many faces.
Yes, but weeds everywhere should be afraid, very afraid.
What are you going to do with the extra 400?
They were too crowded. I went yesterday.
Okay.
Okay, we move to item 11, discussion and possible action regarding fiscal year ended June 30, 2007, management report.
Okay. Good morning, Linda Church's Auditor Controller. What you have before you today are the final 3 reports for the fiscal year 2006-07 audit. And you'll note that there were no discrepancies in the GAN limit calculations in that report, and there were no findings or any major findings in the single audit federal awards. I also have the management report, which is hot off the press from Bartek, Basler, and Ray. It's fairly small, nothing super glaring. Do you guys have any questions? Or okay.
Any questions from the board? Staff?
You know, one thing while you're looking, I just wanted to point out, I thought it was interesting, because I don't think a lot of people realize on the federal awards, it was the $11,728,905, and that's about 11% of our budget that actually
I know, I was
flows through
floored at how
the
much
federal
we got in
government.
federal money.
Right.
Thank God for George Bush.
I have
What do you think, Ed?
I have one question actually myself. This involves the human resources and the condition report here.
Yeah.
It worries me that when they reviewed our files, said they were incomplete and that they may result in errors and inefficiencies in payroll processing. As we approach budget, are we taking a look at this and
Did you read her response?
yes,
They didn't look at the files.
well,
That's what this says. So I was wondering.
yeah, I'm curious what about the discrepancy and how do we reconcile it, and if we do have an issue, what kind of review do we make on that and determination as to whether we have a problem or not?
Well, on that, we're getting ready for our next audit, believe it or not. So when the auditors come back, that will be something that we can request that they look at and maybe resolve any discrepancies.
And that
Well,
was
but how do we get from, we paid money for an audit, and then they say they reviewed the files and found them in a certain condition, and then our response is they didn't look at the files, so I'm just trying to figure out what happened here.
Well, that wasn't in my department, but I don't know if the person in charge didn't know if they looked at them or what was going on. Typically, they do look at files every year, so I don't know.
Well, this is also when we're doing the VITEC transition. This is June, isn't this the
This
end
is
of
just
June?
last...
Of '07.
Yeah, I guess that was...
Yeah, it
And
would be up to
so
them.
this is, weren't we in the VITEC transition?
I think we were well into our way of being through it, I think, so...
I don't know, Bill was on the committee.
Well, without eating our liver over past things, I would ask if administration could just check and see whether our files are in good enough shape so that we are assured that we can handle payrolls efficiently and accurately. That's the only question I have. I'm hoping we can check that out. Thank you.
The other one I had was, they don't take payments in the field anymore from the animal control officers. I'm sure there were reasons for that, but I thought that might be a good time. People, if they want to give them $7 to register their animal, why don't we just take the $7?
We can certainly take a look at that as a practice.
I'm sure there was a reason why the sheriff's office changed that, but... Okay. No, I didn't have any questions.
Any other comments on this particular topic?
No.
All right. Is there any possible action that you would like us to take?
No, this was just information, and thank you.
All right, thank you. We now move to board matters, review of correspondence, reports, and various matters of concern. Supervisor Tryon, could you...
I do not have anything to bring before the board today, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Thomas.
I'm not ready.
Supervisor Callaway.
I'm board appointments. I have Calaveras Public Power Authority this week. I'll be going to Calaveras Humane Society function.
That's tomorrow.
Yes, I think there's a chamber function on Thursday. Of course, those aren't board appointed stuff.
I don't think...
No, that's the following Thursday.
Oh, am I in the wrong week? No, you're not.
This would be the
24th is the
15th.
chamber mixture.
Oh, it is? Not? Okay, the Robin Smith, oh, no, it's not.
it's the Blue Bistro.
No. What is it that I'm going, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
It's what?
The Visitors Bureau round robin events that they're doing. And thank you, Madeline, 5:30 at the Robin's Nest, the Visitors Bureau. It's the B&Bs of Calaveras
Going to be
County.
free food there?
I don't know, for you, possibly, if you whine. Visitors Bureau. Thank you, Madeline. Also, this isn't a board appointed, but this Saturday, Lockmere's going with me to the Blue Lake Springs Homeowners Association because they're looking to impose a no burn in their subdivision. And or maybe, I don't know, we're just saying what the law says and what we will do as a county for them. But it's a very controversial issue. I only bring it up because that's just one of the things of outgrowth of growth. And as you get more people living in these more urban areas, that issue raises its head, and it raises its head more frequently. So that's it.
Thank you.
Oh, Sunday is Earth Day, just in case you all want to know. I thought Mr. Tryon might be particularly interested. It's at Utica
I'm
Park.
interested in some truth and some science being interjected into the debate on
It's
global warming.
I'll be happy to debate that with you, Tryon, but Earth Day is Sunday at Utica Park.
Oh, every day was Earth Day.
It is. But in Tom's district, they have to make a special day. Wait, let me stand.
Are you done with your announcements, dare I ask?
Give me my
Final answer?
snotty remarks. Yes.
Supervisor Thomas, are you prepared to give your report?
Sort of. Chairman Walensky, I have to confess that I gave that note to that meeting in Mariposa, or Sonora, to Carol, and she's supposed to get it back to me, but I will be attending that meeting and to represent you as feebly as I may.
I expect to be well represented,
Okay.
and look forward to hearing the reports of your astounding participation in it.
Okay, and in the same line as the Earth Day, I just wanted to mention that there will be a Lake Tulloch cleanup, the annual Lake Tulloch cleanup on Saturday, starting at about 8:30 at the Lake Tulloch Resort. As usual, we'll dispense maps to show people where the cleanup will, or the specific areas that we'd like for them to clean up, and we're coming back to the resort at noon for a barbecue that will be it's a nicely attended event, and usually results in about from 3,000 to 4,000 pounds of debris that we put in a dumpster and haul away. So that concludes my report for this week.
Supervisor Claudino.
What time is that, dinner tomorrow night, Maria?
6.
I may make the Humane Society dinner tomorrow night in Murphy's. Is that the Native Sons Hall? Okay. Also, well, as long as you mentioned it, I may stop in at the Robin's Nest at 5:30 on Thursday. On Saturday, there are a number of events, any one of which I'm going to show up at. It's, I believe it's from 1 to 3 at the Veterans Hall in Valley Springs. The Valley Springs vets, or the Jenny Lind, I should say, American Legion, having a little kickoff. Failing to convince the voters that they needed a bond to build a new hall down there, they're going to make this effort on their own, their fundraising effort. Is that correct, Ed?
Yes.
And so Saturday, I believe, am I correct? Again, 1 to 3? Somewhere in there anyway.
My dates is sort of being confused with where you're firing.
Yeah, okay, I'll have to check with Hugo, but anyway, they're going to have sort of a kickoff there on the 19th, which is Saturday, yeah. And so that's occurring Saturday. Also, the Valley Springs Boosters have a little wine and cheese thing from 6 to 9, and then there's a cleanup operation, not unlike the one that Supervisor Thomas mentioned, which will be occurring at Comanche South Shore. It's a cleanup day. And that's all I have to report, other than I want to, for the record, I will not be attending the board meeting on May 6th. So, what do we... Oh, sure. You all have my vote, every one of you.
I want you to know. There's this PRD thing that Supervisor Tryon wants. All I need to do is get one more vote and kill it.
You're going to be in for a big disappointment, lady.
There's a plot afoot, but I think we'll move on to the next report instead. We have, I have the Calaveras Child Care Council board meeting today at 4 o'clock. I am attending the West Point Planning Group. The 4 planning groups in that in the West Point area are now moving, advancing their work to some mapping exercises and getting ready to submit some things to the county. And they're mapping their a different town or community center than was sort of arbitrarily laid over and missed about half the population. So one of the but it would be informative to the previous discussion if we were able to get that resolved well, and that's the attempt tonight. We have on actually that appears to be it for the week, with the exception of I'll be celebrating Passover in Tom's district with Earth Day. So look forward to for that, and that completes my report. Mr. CAO, anything for you?
Nothing to add to what's already been stated.
All right. County Council?
Would you like to take something away from what's already been
I would like to press.
I spend most of my day putting the toothpaste back in the tube already.
I've been volunteered to volunteer at the Festival of Wines on Saturday.
Figures.
Are you taste testing?
No, I'm a beast of burden, but that sounds like there's a lot of competition for events, and the Festival of Wine is a nice fundraiser for the hospital and a worthy cause as well in Murphy's.
Great.
Saturday.
Thank you. Madeline? Do you have...
Thursday, EMSOC meeting right here in Smiths. Isn't it Supervisor?
You're absolutely right, I'll be here.
Thank you for reminding us. Appreciate that. With that announcement, we are now concluded with our meeting. The meeting of April 15th, 2008 is hereby adjourned.